Welcome to Columbus, Mississippi, the town of my birth. I'm standing on the porch of the Mississippi Welcome Center. It's a charming Victorian home prominently located on Main Street. It serves as the perfect first stop for anyone arriving in Columbus for the first time. Now, the house has not always served as a welcome center. It's only done that for a little over 25 years. Originally, the home set one block south, and it served as the rectory for St. Paul's Episcopal Church. My grandfather was the Reverend Walter Dakin, and he served as rector of St. Paul's from 1905 until 1913. During those years, this was his home. Let's go inside.
Mother! How wonderful to see
Tom,
you!
It's so good to see you! Oh, my, don't you look nice and tidy? Ooh, and your hair looks so pretty, especially when it's combed.
Oh, Mother, I've just been telling those watching a little about the house. Now, why don't you tell them about our Columbus roots?
I would love to. Well, let's see. I came here in 1905 with Mother and Father. And you know, Father was a rector of St. Paul's Episcopal Church. Oh, and when I got to Columbus, I loved Columbus. Oh, it was so sophisticated and so cultured. Oh, I just loved everything about it. And do you know what I transformed myself into? An elegant Southern belle. Well, let me see. Now, I did help Father in a lot of church activities. I sang in the choir, and I was active in the theater group. And, I joined the DAR. And let me tell you this, I attended all the card parties. Oh, my social calendar was full. Oh, let me see, though. I wanted you to know about this. We had a lot of handsome beaux in Columbus. Ooh! And on many occasions, a fine Southern gentleman would court me, especially on Sunday afternoons in a carriage ride. Oh, but guess what? I accepted every invitation. Everyone. And I never broke an engagement. Well, you know what that would have been? That would have been a matter of being offensive. Oh, but let me tell you about the evenings. Oh, those evenings. Those evenings were full with dinner parties. Oh, and dancing. Oh, and rides on the new streetcars, which ended in a veranda swing. Oh, I just loved everything about it. It was everything a girl's heart could desire.
Mother, you know your reminiscences never cease to delight me. But perhaps you should continue with a little more about our family.
Oh, well, of course. Now, let me see. I married your father in 1907. And your sister came along in 1909. And guess what? You came along in 1911. Oh, you were the cutest. Oh, you were just adorable. Everybody thought you were precious. And when I took you to Sunday church, the parishioners just adored you. And there was somebody else that adored you too. Your grandfather. Oh, you could do no wrong. You were just wonderful in his eyes. Oh, he just adored you. But, Oh, I want to tell you what happened. You'll get a kick out of this. I don't know if you remember it or not, but let's see. You were about 3 years old. And we were still living here in this home. We loved living in here with Mother and Father. And it was a hot, hot day. And you know what you were doing? You were digging in the dirt with your little shovel. Oh, you were digging, digging, digging. And guess what? Sweat was pouring down your face. Your little blonde curls were stuck to your head. And you were still digging. And I looked up from my jungles and I said, Tom, what are you doing? And you know what you did? You kept on digging, and kept on digging, and you turned around and looked at me, scrunched up your little nose, and you said, I'm digging to the devil. Oh! I loved it. And after that, we just had a wonderful time. And I was going to ask you, why don't you tell us about things that you and Grandfather did in your childhood?
Oh, my childhood. Oh. Well, it was truly the only time of my life that was completely unshadowed by fear. Rose and I would spend our days baking mud pies in the sun, or climbing up and down that huge wood pile, or cutting paper dolls out of those mail order catalogs. Now, one of our favorite things to do was to walk up and down the alleyways and go through the trash piles and find little bits of broken glass, because we would take those and pretend like they were rubies and sapphires or emeralds. Oh, and we made up stories all the time. Why, Rose and I could just be strolling down the sidewalk and we would find things to make up stories about everywhere. Mother, Rose, you know, was especially gifted at exaggeration. Oh, and Grandfather. Grandfather was my source of peace and security throughout my formative years. Why, even into adulthood, he kept me connected to Mississippi. He was always there for me. And Mississippi found its way into quite a great deal of my work. Now, many years later, after I had become successful and Grandfather had retired, I would send him money so he could come and stay with me wherever I was. New York, New Orleans, or Key West, Florida. Now, he particularly loved Key West, Florida. I even bought him a place of his own right next to mine in Key West. Oh, and Grandfather flew for the first time when he was 92 years old. Now, you remember that, Mother.
I do remember that.
He came to see me in New York, and as he was boarding the plane, there was a reporter that stopped him and asked him. They said, Dr. Dakin, aren't you nervous? And Grandfather turned and he quipped, what have I got to lose?
I remember that. And you know, speaking of you and Grandfather, you know, Grandfather just doted on you. And when we lived in this house, you would follow Grandfather around, and you remember you followed him in his office a lot, and you know why? You loved being with him, and you loved hearing his stories. Well, you were just like a little pitcher with big ears. Oh, you just adored him. But you tell me some more about your excursions with Grandfather and the things you all did.
Oh, Grandfather and I were inseparable, Mother. You know
yes.
that. You know, we actually returned back here to Columbus at a later date. As a matter of fact, that would have been, 1952. 1952, shortly after A Streetcar Named Desire won several Academy Awards. Grandfather and I had talked on many occasions about coming back to Columbus. But we finally made the trip. We came into town for one weekend, and here in Columbus, Grandfather was the star. Oh, I just drove him around wherever he asked to go, and we were in my Jaguar convertible, and the people would rush to come up and greet him. Oh, But he loved every minute of the attention. He just enjoyed it so much, and I just sat quietly in the background and let him take it all in. Let's see. He introduced me to a Mr. Douglas Bateman, and we came back here to our old home. As a matter of fact, we were photographed in this very room by the local newspaper. Oh, my goodness. And we also visited St. Paul's Church, and I got to see the font where I was christened. And I thought that St. Paul's was one of the handsomest churches I'd ever seen. As a matter of fact, Mother, the entire town seemed to epitomize everything that made the South grand. Oh, let's see. Oh, I recall meeting a most interesting young lady from nearby Aberdeen. And she had all of the traits of a female character I was working on at the time. And I wanted to spend days with her. But I had been invited to a party that evening, and I had to go and get myself prepared for it. Mr. Davis Patty and I traveled to Sugarlock, Mississippi, to the Harrison Evans plantation. Now, Mother, that was a party.
I bet.
Food and drinks, music and dancing, and lots of interesting characters around that place. None more colorful than the owner of the place himself, because he was very quick to point out to everybody that he owned 28,000 acres of the richest land this side of the Valley Nile.
Gracious.
That night was filled with fun and good times, I'll tell you. Why, I didn't make it back into town here to the Gilmer Hotel till 4 a.m. in the morning. Now, it wasn't so fun when at 7 a.m. Grandfather began rapping on my door with his cane, because he knew we had to be on our way to Memphis, and Grandfather was ready to go. Oh, Mother, I just absolutely loved Grandfather so much. And, you know, sadly, he passed away on us in 1955, and that was very difficult for me. Matter of fact, there were quite a number of things in my personal life around that time that were taking their toll on me, and there were so many people that...
Don't go that way. Don't go that way, Tom. I loved all your work. All your work was wonderful. And speaking of work, why don't you share this with our guest?
Mother, what's this?
I found that in St. Louis in your dresser.
Mother, it's one of my poems. I do remember this. I wrote this about Gran not long after she passed. How extraordinary. Well, dear silent ghost, I see you scraping carrots by the stove or spicing meats with cinnamon and clove. Through memory your patient hands are spun, lifting white curtains to the morning sun, or beckoning at twilight from the stair. I feel your rain-washed, lemon-scented hair, cool on my cheeks, heated and flushed from play in April woods some far nostalgic day. But where, dear silent ghost, are put away the wise and lovely things you used to say? Behind the stove or underneath the stair? In lemon scent or rain-washed April air?
Oh, I loved it. Thank you.
Mother and I hope you enjoy all of the virtual features. And we especially hope that you'll join us in Columbus again next year, 2021, for the 20th annual Tennessee Williams Tribute. Thank you.
Thank you.